And happy weekend. I hope your weekend is going great. Thanks for joining me here on The Law and Life. I'm your lawyer, Patrick McGeehan, and I am your best friend at your worst time. We have yet another attack out of Miami Beach, similar to the one I described a few days ago, last week or so, and I'll put it up there. Check that video out. That was a more serious incident, but here we have that occurred Friday afternoon. A Miami Beach resident and his 8-year-old son were coming back from a Marlins game and traveling from the mainland over to Miami Beach on the Venetian Causeway. Venetian Causeway is one of several that run to Miami Beach. It's a smaller, lesser known causeway, and it's usually used by residents because not too many tourists know about it. The tourists tend to use the larger interstate causeways, but Venetian Causeway is a good way to get to the beach. And he's riding along and they stop at a light and they get into an altercation with between 15 and 25 teenagers on bicycles. We have a serious problem on Miami Beach with kids riding over from the mainland and attacking people, attacking tourists, robbing them, and all kinds of mayhem. The riders are linked to several assault and battery cases in Miami and Miami Beach. They're doing wheelies, they're swerving, they're playing chicken with the various cars on the road. The father said he called the police to warn them about the riders who zipped ahead of him. Sounds like it's becoming a road rage incident. Anyway, these things are dangerous. This is the father speaking. When he stopped at the light at East Riviera Alto Drive, all of a sudden a bunch of them came from behind and started banging on the car. They were not provoked, said the father. I was in the car with my young son with the windows up. The taunting made the victim's son upset. Daddy, Daddy, why are they doing this? Screaming and screaming, he said. The father said he got out of the SUV. Now, here's his first mistake. If there was anything that happened before this, if he was jawing with them or exchanging words with them, that was a mistake too. But here's your big mistake. You got 15 to 25 kids surrounding your car, and you're going to get out? Don't get out. Stay in your car, lock the doors, and call the police and scream bloody murder, and they'll come a lot faster. Apparently, they passed a police officer early. Miami Beach stations a vehicle or a patrol car with an officer in it on the causeway to handle all the calls on the Venetian Causeway. So there's always an officer on Venetian Causeway, at least on day shift and afternoon shift. I don't know about midnight shift, but days and afternoon there's always an officer assigned to the causeway. The causeway is only maybe a mile long, mile and a half. So they could be there. This is actually a situation where they could be there rather quick. Don't get out of the car. Don't let yourself get boxed in when you're in an urban city, and especially when you're in an area where there's high crime. This is not an area where there's high crime. There's multi-million dollar mansions along this causeway. It travels through a couple barrier islands on its way to the causeway, and there's just amazing homes in this area. So this is not what you would consider a high crime area. It's a very luxurious neighborhood. Anyway, stay in your car. Don't let yourself get boxed in. Keep a sufficient distance between you and the car ahead of you where you can maneuver. Sometimes you get cars on the side of a multi-lane roadway. It makes it more difficult. But the closer you are to the car in front of you and the car behind you, that severely limits your ability to move the car. So I learned this when I was a policeman. I always pull up to a point to where I could see the bottom of the rear bumper, and that seems to, at least in the vehicles I drive, that seems to be enough room to where if I had to, I could maneuver out from behind the car in front of me. Anyway, so Dad gets out, they get into it, and the fight starts. They knocked him. Somebody came up from the other side and knocked me to the ground. This is what they do. One will come up and engage you, and another one or another two or three, when you're concentrating your attention on the one that's engaging you, the other ones will come up and start sucker punching you. Knocked them to the ground. They were kicking me and stomping me, and they were trying to run me over with the bike, and they were trying to hit me with the bike. He ended up bloodied and bruised. Also caused some damage to his car, and then he goes in to give his thoughts about how Miami Beach is no longer a safe place and not a good place to raise a family. Somebody could have been killed. They rode off on their bicycles after the altercation before the police got there. The police are investigating the case as a simple battery case, which is a misdemeanor case in Florida. This is from Channel 7 News in Miami. They also released a narrative to a police report, and this looks like it would be belonging to an accident report. Apparently, when dad was maneuvering in the car, the juvenile moved over his son. His 8-year-old son hit the gear shifter. The car moved forward and hit the car in front of it. And they wrote an accident report, and you can see here the officer was assigned as the Venetian unit. They knew the juveniles were riding across the causeway. Describes what happened when the cars hit each other, minor scrapes and bruises, some damage to the SUV, documenting the incident. Body-worn camera was used. I doubt he got any of the subjects on the body-worn camera. He probably just got the initial interview with the involved driver. Anyway, guy gets beat up. He gets bloodied a little bit, had to go to the hospital, but it looks like he'll be okay. This could be a whole lot worse than it was. Be very, very careful when you're dealing with large groups like this. Something can happen and it becomes a mob mentality, and the next thing you know, something really bad happens. So if you live on Miami Beach, or you frequent Miami Beach, or even if you're thinking about coming on vacation to Miami Beach, just be aware that this is going on, and they are not discriminating. They are attacking tourists as well as residents, basically anybody. They are riding around, they're doing robberies, they're just stopping and beating people for no reason whatsoever. Just be very, very careful. I don't want anything to happen to you. Thank you for joining me here on The Law and Life. I'm your lawyer, Patrick McGeehan. I am your best friend at your worst time, and have a great weekend.